All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today here at Tattered Cover to do an amazing live event with some terrific authors. If you are unfamiliar with Tattered Cover, we are a local bookstore here in Denver, Colorado. We are the largest independent bookstore in the state. And you can visit us at tatteredcover.com to get all your book needs and find out more author events. We have been open for 50 years and we've been doing over 500 author events per year for quite a while. And we moved virtual, so thank you for being with us during this time. Tonight we have two amazing authors, Sandhya Menon and Samira Ahmed. They will be discussing Sandhya's new book. And I'm going to let them introduce the books. I know that they know each other and I know that they are going to talk a lot about what's going on. So I'm just going to turn it right over to them. And please, if you have questions, you could put them in the chat. And if you need closed captioning, there's closed captioning at the bottom. There's a little button that says CC. Please click that if you need closed captioning for any reason. And I'm going to turn over to Sandhya and Samira.
Hey.
Hi. I made it out of the void.
Hi, your lighting is so good. Mine is like all funky because of like the way the sun is behind this tree by my house.
It actually looks kind of romantic and like sepia toned.
Actually, that was on purpose because we're talking about romance. Sorry, I forgot. Yeah, I did that totally on purpose just for you, sis. Hi, Yay. How are you? Happy book birthday.
Thank you. And thank you so much for agreeing to chat with me for this hour in spite of your many deadlines. I know you are super busy and I was like, I feel bad asking, but
no, I'm so glad you did. It's been so long since we've seen each other. Like,
I know
we've talked on the phone during this,
yes,
like teeny year, but like it's been so long. I miss you.
I know, same. I feel like before it was like every so often we'd have an event where we, met up and it just felt so much like I would see you a few times a year and then it was all of a sudden, nope, it was the eternal year of 2020.
I know. I feel like in my mind, when I say last year, I think of it as 2019.
I know.
Because it was when 2020 just erased. But I hope we can see each other again soon because I am fully vaxxed.
Me too. Yes, I am fully vaxxed, fully protected. My kids are fully vaxxed.
Nice.
Yes, I know. Gosh. They're old enough. So as soon as they said that, I was like, okay, let's go to Walgreens.
I was like, as soon as I could get an appointment, I was like on that Walgreens site, like I was like at midnight when they switched it over in Chicago, I was like, I'm gonna get that appointment. I just felt so happy when I could get it. So
I know. And I remember texting you and you were telling me about like your side effects and stuff. And you were like, it's so worth it. And I was like, I don't care if I have to like give up my sense of smell for 2 years. I'm still gonna
Totally. It was totally worth it. And my side effects were like only like a day. So
yeah, mine too.
I hope everyone is fully vaxxed because you all deserve to be.
Do it.
Good here on the other side. So let's talk about, I was going to say, how long has it been when did we meet each other? Was it?
Oh my gosh.
4 years. Well, it was Dimples.
Yeah.
What year? Dimple 2017. 2017.
Yeah. It's been 4 years.
No, that's 5. Is that 4 years or 5? Yeah.
It's 4, right?
We're like, what is math?
We're not mathematicians.
Yeah, I know. Despite like probably half our like Desi families are like, oh my God, I'm so bad at math science. Okay, I know. Well, I feel like we bonded immediately, both because of books, because I love Dimple so much, and honestly, Dimple was probably the character like in YA that like I related to the most in so many ways.
Oh,
and she always has. I mean, even though the whole Dimple verse is amazing, and then like the Rosetta characters are also hilarious, and wicked sometimes. Dimple is always my favorite in my heart. So,
thank you. And I feel the same way about Love, Hate, and Other Filters. Like, we bonded so much over those two books. I feel like that was how our friendship was forged.
I know that, and like talking about food. I feel like last time we were just like talking about food, which I was like, those two are very important things. Books and food. Like, what else is there? But tell us a little bit about Princes and Promises. Like, give us like a little bit of an elevator pitch.
Okay, so Princes and Promises, you can see my giant
I
cover.
love that poster.
My publisher sent me that. I love this for virtual events, but
oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, so it is the second book in the Rosetta Academy series. The first one was Of Curses and Kisses, and each book in the series is a fairy tale retelling, but it's a contemporary retelling with just like a touch of magical vibes. Like, you can choose to believe it's magic, or I give you alternative explanations as well. So it's one of those. But Of Princes and Promises is a Frog Prince retelling. And it's kind of a companion novel to Of Curses and Kisses. So you've met these characters before if you read the first book. And in this book, Caterina Laval, who in the first book was set up as like this Italian millionaire heiress. She is very, very much the queen of the school. She's shown as like an ice princess. Nothing can shake her. And she is shaken very terribly in the first book because her boyfriend of many years cheats on her. And it's a very public, humiliating episode for her. So starting in Of Princes and Promises, she kind of wants to come back after winter break and, you know, take over the school again, basically, show people that she's over the breakup, she's better than ever, etc. And so there's this very public social event coming up, a gala, and she needs a date. And she's really tired of all the superficial boys she usually dates. So she decides to date Rahul Chopra, who is an Indian boy. He is very much a chess nerd. He is socially anxious. He's basically not at all the kind of boy she usually dates. He doesn't care about clothes, you know.
He's basically a full-on dork. He's a dork, right?
He's adorkable. And so she decides, okay, I'm going to take this boy, but I'm going to make him over so he's at least a little presentable for my social circle. And so she does. But the only thing that they don't know is there's this pot of hair gel that they bought, along with lots of other things from this store. And it turns out this pot of hair gel might be magical, and it might have more to it than they think. And so Rahul goes through this really big transformation, and he's completely unidentifiable anymore. He's very confident. He's very suave. He adopts this whole other persona. And so through the whole book, I'm trying to answer the question, is it a good thing to completely change who you are? Are major transformations like that always a good thing? Are they always a bad thing? Is there some good and some bad? Like, what can we learn from this? And then Katerina herself there are a lot of twists and turns in the book, basically, that she has to also contend with on her own. And one thing that I loved the most about this book was the character arcs for these two. They just felt so juicy. Like, while I was writing it, I'm sure you could identify with this, but it's like you go into the story, you don't realize how much these characters are going to grow. Even you as the author don't quite get it until you start writing. You're like, oh, this is what it is. So that was super fun.
I really love that. I mean, first of all, I love that it has like the Frog Prince thing, like this very classical, like it's a Grimm's fairy tale. But so I looked this up, the original version of the Frog Prince, it's not that she kisses the frog and then he becomes the prince. She actually throws it against a wall.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in this book, or maybe it does.
Oh my gosh, it is hilarious that you say that, because when I read that, I told my husband, and I was like, is there a way I could work that into a romance? And he was like, I don't think so.
And you're like, let me practice on you. I'll practice the kiss. We'll also practice this other kind of transformation.
Yeah.
Let's see what works. Do you
Exactly.
volunteer? So yes, I thought that was cool, but also I feel like it also has a little bit of this like Can't Buy Me Love vibe, you know, that old rom-com,
Yes.
which I love because it has that question of like, when you change, is it good? Is too much change, like when is too much change not good? Is it authentic?
Right.
It is right, you know, it brings up these questions that I think the reader has to sort of contend with, just like the way the character's contending with it.
Exactly.
So I think that's really, I think it's fun. And I like that Raul is just I mean, he's like a tall, like a legit major dork, but just kind of like with a heart of gold, like a sweet guy. So I like that you lean into it, but I especially, to me, I was like, you say there's like just like the hint of magic,
Yes.
right? The hint, but it almost is like a double, like you see it how you want to see it in a way, right? But I love that the hint of magic comes with like a mysterious pot of hair gel. I mean, like I was a kid in the 80s, so I feel like hair products and magic go together naturally. But how did you come up with that as a thing? Like, why was it that and not like, okay, eyeliner, or here's the, like, what was the pot of hair gel? Because to me, that's like one of the most unique parts of the book and fun.
Thank you. Yeah, so I wanted something that fit into like a tongue-in-cheek kind of, very rom-com-esque vibes with a pot of hair gel. But also I wanted to give it like a plausible out, like when I go into this, so one of probably the most frequently asked question about this series is, you have to tell me in your mind, is it magic or isn't it? Because even in Of Curses and Kisses, there's this vibe of, it could have been magic, it could have been something else. So people ask me that frequently, thinking that I secretly know the answer. But I actually go into each book in the series not knowing, and I purposely keep it ambiguous, even in my head, because otherwise I think it kind of comes out like, that really this is what the author thinks. So with the hair gel, I wanted to give it like a possible chemical reason that maybe he's undergone this transformation and is able to fool people, is because, there's a chemical compound in the hair gel that is actually changing his personality, or the fumes from it are like making them hallucinate things. I give a bunch of explanations, but all of that kind of worked with the hair gel. It was like a nice vehicle for all of those kinds of reasons to come out. And on the other hand, the man selling them the hair gel in the shop says like it has a very mysterious like providence, and it comes from this place that, maybe it is actually, there's some magical herbs used in it. So like I wanted people to be able to figure out and believe what they wanted to believe based on what their particular leanings are. And the hair gel just played really nicely into that.
I like how, because I like the ambiguity, because it asks this question, which I think we can ask a lot of times, which is like, is it magic or magical? Like,
Right.
is it like magic working this thing, or is it just because of something magical happening either inside of me or between us, or
Exactly.
whatever? And I actually think that's with some rom-coms, I feel like that is like just like the sauce that makes it so good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just love having that that element. Plus the hair gel, I think of it as like, I mean, hair gel essentially exists to transform your hair into something different, right?
Yes.
So taking it from what it's natural state into something different. So I just was like, I've never read so much into hair gel in my whole life. I was like, this is a lot of symbolism for a pot of gel, but I'm liking it.
This gel has many layers. See what I did there?
Yeah, I think it's so cool. But I also think it's interesting that you just said that you go into it. You said two things. One is like, it was kind of, you were like writing these characters and you loved their arc so much, and you didn't necessarily have a full sense of that exact arc the minute you started writing. And the same with like this ambiguity. So you were writing craft wise with some of that ambiguity too. So does that mean you're not plotting it out? Are you plotting it out a little bit? Or because I mean, I just think that's interesting, because you're sort of saying the characters led me in a direction.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I am a very heavy duty plotter. As someone who is always on multiple deadlines, Samira, you can probably relate. You can't really afford to do like what you can do when you are not a contracted writer, which is just like kind of play. And then if it doesn't work, you junk half the book, and you like, when you have deadlines, you're like, okay, I got to keep it moving. It's got to be somewhat smooth. So I definitely plot. I even have character sheets that I do in advance for all the characters and everything, but I plot with a little bit of space so that if there is some movement to happen, then it can happen. And I can also go back to my plotting wall and like add stickies or re-smooth out the stickies in the future, as you know, if this will affect other things in the future, then I can do that as I'm writing. I don't lose a ton of time. But yeah, it's that space, you know, where I don't know what might happen that's so magical. I feel like there's that like kind of an ambiguous, like anything is possible, almost like magical kind of for me. So I think that's why I was surprised so much.
I think it's cool that you plot, but I like how you talk about you leave that space for magic for yourself, because I think, I mean, I started out as a total pantser, and I was like, this plotting thing, no, I can't deal with that. I mean, my first book, Love, Hate, and Other Filters, because it wasn't a contracted book, it took me, not only did it take me a long time to write, because I wasn't just like writing to a deadline, I was just sort of like writing for fun on the side, doing other jobs, like this, that, and the other thing. But then, like, my first draft of Love, Hate, and Other Filters was like 120,000 words, which you and I both know is actually bonker balls for a YA contemporary.
Yeah.
But it was published at 65,000 words.
Wow.
Right. So I took a lot of words out. There's like a lot of words on my computer, but just like you just said, you're like, I don't have time to throw away half the book, which I literally basically did.
I've done it too, don't worry.
But now it's true, we don't necessarily have the time to do that, but I don't think that makes it less creative in some ways. Like, I don't know, were you one of those kinds of kids in school who like the semester that you had the most activities was the time you had the best grades, because you like kind of had to focus?
Right, you have to focus. Exactly. Yes, that's exactly it. And it makes you a much more efficient writer, which sometimes people equate that, like you said, with not being as creative or being more business minded, but it doesn't have to be like that. You just get really good at saying like, yeah, this plot is not fully fleshed out, or this needs to be, you know, hookier or whatever. You just get really good at doing that on the fly rather than having to write 100,000 words and then figure out like, oh, this, you know,
you're like, crud, 50,000 of these are wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think it's something that this is now your 7th book.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Crazy.
In 4 years?
Yeah, since 2017.
Holy crud.
So I guess that's 5 years, because you're counting 2021 too. So
yes, right.
Will be 5 years.
Okay, fine. But still, that's quite a lot of books. Do you feel like you've learned I mean, I feel like with every book you learn something new, right? So what do you think it is, or whether it's about yourself or as in your writing style or your craft or whatever, what's something that this book taught you?
Oh man, so much. So this book and this series, and especially this book, I think I've gotten better at doing more multi-layered books, where with my earlier work, like with Dimple and stuff, it was fairly straightforward because I wasn't good at juggling like multiple, you know, plot points or subplots or having things like tied together. I was moderating Casey McQuiston recently, and she said she calls it like the corset tightening phase of her books, when she has multiple threads that just come together and fit tightly together, and you're like, oh, this is how these all click together. And I could not figure that out for my first few books. And then with the Rosetta Academy series is when I started to really try to work on that, because Rosetta Academy specifically has a lot of like intrigue and mystery and multiple things like working under the surface that you're like, how do those things fit together? And it all comes together in the end and it solves something that you're like, oh my God, I didn't see that twist coming. And in order to do that, like you really have to have a tight plot. Firstly, you have to know your characters very well. Everything has to be efficient and tight. And that is, I think, a skill that comes with time. So like even for Of Curses and Kisses, the first one, I was trying to do that and I had to replot the book. And I even did rewrite the book a lot in order to get that to work really well. And with Of Princes and Promises, it was a lot easier because I'd already done it once. I'd already messed up once. I knew most of the pitfalls. So going into the plotting process, I already knew what to look out for and how to make things fit together better. And then same thing when I was writing, because there are some twists and turns that come in the book. And like, I was like, okay, so in order for that to work at the end, I have to start, putting seeds in over here. And then this twist at 50% and stuff like that. So I learned a lot.
I really like how you talk about the seeds, because I was wondering, because the Rosetta Academy series, I mean, you could technically read this book on its own.
Yes.
But you actually seed things in the first book.
Yes.
For this book. So if everyone, you should read them in order. Buy the first book, buy Curses and Kisses first and read it. But if you end up reading Princes and Promises first, what I actually think is cool is that you could then go back to Curses and Kisses and read it second, but then you would pick up these little kind of Easter eggs that you left in the first book, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And it's cool because that means number one, as a reader, I love it when you have like the aha moment, but like one book later, because like you'll be reading this and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I remember that from this from the first book. But then also, I think it's cool because just from a craft perspective, what that means is you have somehow you plotted or at least created enough of an umbrella for these two plus the next one, right?
Yes, yeah. So there will be Easter eggs in this book for the third book. Yes, absolutely. And there were some in the first book as well. So yeah, it's kind of fun as a writer too to do that and be like, I wonder how many people are going to pick up on this, you know, or when they do a reread, hopefully of the series, they'll be like, oh my God, I totally missed that the first time around. That's always like a really fun moment.
Can you talk about the third book, or I didn't spill the beans on that, right? No, that wasn't part of the announcement. I was like, wait a minute. Oops. Sorry, everyone. No, I didn't, right?
I know.
It was on Goodreads. I was like, I double checked before I came on.
Oh, you're so sweet. No, it's only fine. The third book is tentatively titled Of Dreams and Destiny, because my original editor for the book was like, well, if you do the second one of something and something, then you know you're committed, right? And I was like, yeah, I got it. So the third one is Of Dreams and Destiny, and it is a Sleeping Beauty retelling, and it follows Dee, who we meet in book 1 and then is also in book 2. So a lot of people have asked, like, will Dee get her own book? Because she's like a very sympathetic character, but a lot of bad stuff happens to her. So I did want to kind of give her her own stage and you know, work toward that happily ever after. So yes, that book is coming in early 2023.
Early 2023. So what appeals to you about the retellings? Because I think The Frog Prince is actually, I think it's actually an underrated fairy tale. Like we don't see that retelling that much. So I mean, we don't even hear about it that much. I mean, I don't know if it's because people don't want to kiss frogs or what, but it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor. Yeah. So talk about why you picked that one, because I think we can talk about retellings generally, but let's start with The Frog Prince and talk about why that particular story appealed to you, because you wanted to throw a frog against the wall and see if it turned into a prince. Some versions of it have him sleeping, like the frog has to sleep underneath the pillow of the princess.
Oh my gosh, yes, I remember reading that too. It was very creepy and weird.
Don't you suffocate the frog that way? I don't understand. I was like, how does that work?
I don't get it.
So why did you pick this one?
So The Frog Prince, honestly, with this series, what I tried to do was come up with a I wanted to have this idea of a plot. Like, this is the kind of story I would like to tell, and then see if there was a fairy tale that would match it. So I wasn't trying to shoehorn a story into a fairy tale, but rather coming up with a story first, because I wanted to be excited about what I wanted to write, you know? Mm-hmm. So with The Frog Prince, I knew I wanted to do a gender bent makeover story with Rahul, because he was just like ripe for a makeover story. And when I was writing Of Curses and Kisses, you know, he has this crush on Katerina that kind of pops up through the pages. And I was like, that would be perfect. She is the princess. He could be the Frog Prince. You know, it could be a makeover story, but like with a twist, because it's not like the makeover stories that I like to watch in the 90s, like She's All That, which is just so toxic and had a terrible message. And it's always the girl like changing herself for the boy. So I wanted to flip that on its head. And I also wanted to flip the idea of like, you have to change everything about who you are in order to find love, especially if you're like a nerd or, you know, socially anxious person and stuff. So The Frog Prince just fits so perfectly for that. And like you said, it is underrated. It's not one of those that you see a billion books of, like Of Curses and Kisses. That was just challenged. There were so many Beauty and the Beast retellings already out there, done very well, that I was like, how do I put my own fresh spin on it? So this one was a little more like territory that hadn't been touched as much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mentioned earlier the Can't Buy Me Love, which is sort of like the flip side of She's All That.
Yes.
And that was so weird because it was like the boy who has to like
Yeah.
transform. And I can't remember which of those came first. I think it was Can't Buy Me Love.
Yeah, I think it was Can't Buy Me Love, and then She's All That was in the late 90s, I think.
Right, because I feel like yes, I think it's something like that. But I do think it's interesting because we do have a lot of literature and stories about the concept of transformation. But like what you're saying is, what you said about how it can also be toxic. It's like the idea is, do you have to really change yourself for someone to love you?
Right.
And if you do, what does that mean about both the person who falls for you, and about what you're willing to sacrifice? Because you have sacrificed that notion in this book too. Like, what are the choices you're making for yourself, and is the price too high?
Exactly. Yes. I think that it is especially important in YA because, at least me, when I was an adolescent, constantly I was like, oh, am I too much here? Is this something that people won't like about me? Should I change this? Should I change that? And I think that's a very common thing in that age, and I wanted to show like transformation is always talked about as like a great thing, the caterpillar to the butterfly, but there's this other side of it, right? And like, should the person who truly loves you, shouldn't they love you for who you were before you decided to get a completely new personality? So,
right. Well, yeah, or because some of the transformation is just surface or physical, right? I mean, like the caterpillar to the butterfly, the reason part of that is beautiful is because the caterpillar was always destined to be the butterfly, right? The butterfly exists within the caterpillar.
Yes.
So that's actually a transformation into they're like leaning into their best self or whatever.
Yes.
But a lot of the transformation books and movies we saw, especially in rom-coms, especially when, I mean, they end up, like you said, being actually a little bit sexist because they're like, the girl has to change it all to appeal to like the rich boy or the popular boy.
Exactly.
Or whatever. I mean, I still watched all those rom-coms in the 90s, don't get me wrong.
Me too. And that's the thing. I love what you said about the caterpillar and the butterfly. Like the butterfly was always within you. And that's kind of I go there in Of Princes and Promises too, is like this idea of, not everything about your transformation, just because it's so extreme, came externally or through magic only. Maybe some of it was already within you. And maybe it was just being, you were bringing it out where before you hadn't let it shine. So I think that's the thing with transformation is there's this fine line of like, superficial versus deep. And then also like, is it really just part of you that you're allowing to shine, which is healthy and great? Or is it you completely twisting yourself to be someone else who you think is more acceptable, which is just what fascinates me about transformation and makeover stories.
Well, I see how that kind of goes into all of these books. And, but even as you're talking, I was thinking like, well, that's actually what the Dimpleverse books have, those elements too.
Yes.
This is like one of your thematic through lines in all of your work, which I was like, wait a minute, that's actually pretty, yeah,
It's
I actually think that's pretty interesting.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah.
I think that's cool. All right, that's great. I can't wait to see how you apply this in like middle grade, because that's the category you haven't done. You've done adult and you've done YA. Okay, so I think we have a few more minutes before we're going to take questions. So everyone who's watching, if you have questions, which I hope you do, you should. I always have tons of questions for Sandhya. So just drop them in the chat or whatever the correct spot is for that. So I'm going to give you like a few sort of like fast-ish questions. Okay. So what is your favorite writing snack and beverage?
Ooh, okay. Beverage is easy. I have it right here. It's tea. I can drink endless cups of tea while I'm writing.
Like caffeinated black tea? What?
In the morning, I like to do black with like a splash of plant milk. But then as it wears on into the afternoon, I have to switch to herbal. And then for snack, I tend not to snack when I'm writing because this drives me crazy. But when my fingers get dirty, You know?
Agree. It's so annoying. I can't do that. So I go away from the computer to snack. I will have snacks on hand, but I do I do the Pomodoro method sometimes. So 25 minutes
yes,
on.
me too.
And then 5 minutes off. And then that 5 minutes can be a snack break, but wash hands. The greasiness on your hands. But so during your 5 minute break, what is a snack that you're having after you've cleaned off your keyboard?
With a wet wipe.
Yeah.
I know. I love fruit. So right now I'm loving cherries, which are like the messiest snack possible.
You're so healthy. I was like, I'm waiting for you to be like Cool Ranch Doritos followed by flaming hot Cheeto sandwiches.
Oh, well, I had to, that would totally be me, but I had to clean up my diet like 2.5 years ago because I had horrible health issues. So I have to eat very clean now.
Okay, good. Well, all right, then I'm not going to get you. I'm glad that you were able to do that. I will take inspiration from that. I'm going to have some fruit as soon as I get off this. I'm going to have a banana for the potassium.
There you
Everybody,
go.
you need your potassium. Okay, what is your favorite rom-com movie?
Oh gosh. Can I just say all of the Meg Ryan movies? I love like Sleepless in Seattle, You've Got Mail, like everything. I also love Notting Hill, which I realize is Julia Roberts. Hugh Grant, you know.
I mean, When Harry Met Sally to me is like a classic. Yes. That's like a Meg Ryan. Yeah, although I feel like that was like the golden age in our lifetime. The golden age of rom-coms was like the Meg Ryan rom-coms.
So good. A recent one that I really love though is Set It Up. It is so cute. I don't know if you watched it.
Yes, of course. I've watched it like 3 times. Yeah.
Oh my god.
I mean, I also
I
also watch like ridiculous like holiday rom-coms.
Yes.
I was like, why am I watching this for the 17th time?
Good. I know. They're just so good.
This is about a Christmas ghost.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome. I need to watch that. You have to tell me what it is.
I think it's called The Christmas Spirit or something. Spirit of Christmas or something. I was like, I watched this. I was like, it's basically a very hot ghost. But anyway, what's your favorite rom-com book, YA or adult?
Ooh, okay, so I love Jasmine Guillory. Like anything she writes is right up alley. Love her. Casey McQuiston, Helen Huang, and on the YA side, absolutely love Becky Albertalli's rom-com. So good. So good.
So good. Favorite kissing scene, movie and book?
Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm drawing a blank on all the kissing scenes ever. What's yours? Maybe I can take inspiration.
No, you're not supposed to like turn it on me. You're supposed to...
I'm sure there are many.
So I think like my favorite like talking kissing scene, do you know what I mean? Where there's like just a lot of talking and then it's like, okay, I think probably the New Year's Eve kiss with When Harry Met Sally. I do like that because she's like just going on and he's just kind of looking at her like, this is why I love you. And she's like, I hate you.
Yeah. Yes.
And there's something I do like about that. I don't know if it's because I am sort of academic-y and a dork and a nerd, and they are also, so that's why it appeals to me. But then there's like, I guess there's more like, I'm trying to think of like the more sweeping romantic kisses. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's not a rom-com, but like Casablanca did have some good kisses in it.
That's true. Yes. I mean, that's classic. I love the one in You've Got Mail where at the end they meet up and
in the
she's
flower
like,
garden.
Yeah, in the garden, and she's like, oh, it was you, and on all that, and she was hoping it was him, and then they kiss. I love that one because they were like hating on each other the entire time.
Well, the kiss at the end of Set It Up is good too.
I don't remember the kiss. Why do I not remember the kiss? What scene was it?
It's a very, very last scene where she sees him out on the sidewalk, or he comes out of the building. She comes out of the building. He's waiting on the sidewalk, and she's like, "You're totally annoying, and I hate how you fold your socks."
That was so good.
And why don't you use napkins more, or like whatever it is? And I was like, see, I like it. I like the talking kissy scenes.
Yeah, I mean, it's more emotional. It's more specific to the two characters rather than just generic hot people kissing, Yeah,
I mean, that's also fine. I don't like the kisses in Outlander.
Oh my God, yes.
Or like Bridgerton.
So good.
Gosh.
Oh, Bridgerton. Oh, we could have a whole other thing about Bridgerton.
Oh God, we don't have enough time to talk about that whole series, book, and TV show. Oh my God.
Yes. Or Discovery of Witches is another one. Oh my gosh, so good.
Yes. So good. Okay. Wait, do we have like another minute? Okay, who is like your, I guess this is hard because after talking about all this kissing, who's like your OTP in a book? Or you know what, it can be anything, book or TV show or movie, whatever you want. I'll make it easier.
Okay. So going back to my Notting Hill obsession, I do love the Julia Roberts character. I can never remember names. Julia Roberts character, she's like this famous
Movie star.
Yeah, and she's just so like high above him, and he's this like guy who just happened to stumble upon her. And so I love that dynamic. I think that is so cool, and they're so perfect together. So they're definitely one of my OTPs for sure. And then I love in Helen Huang's Kiss Quotient, I love the two. I think it's Stella and Michael. I'm so bad with names, but anyway, I love them. I love their dynamic so much.
I mean, I'm gonna just go out here. This isn't a rom-com or romance, but for me, like one of my OTPs is the X-Files. It's Mulder and Scully.
Yes, I shipped them so hard when I was little.
You know what? Speaking of like the kisses, like when you're like, oh my God, we waited 7 years for a kiss. It's a very long time.
Yes.
Or like, the kiss in like the have you ever seen Persuasion, the one with Ciarán Hinds,
No.
the Jane Austen one? There's like a kiss there right at the end, and it's just like after that amazing letter, like, you pierce my soul. And it's like there's just this it's a very simple short kiss, but you're like, finally, she's like a spinster, she's basically a spinster in the book because she's 27, and
that's so old.
I know. Oh my God. I was like, wait, you know what? We should have just started with talking about kisses, because we could have just been doing this whole time. Yeah, like for example, do you say to your husband, okay, now you have to practice this kiss scene with me? I got to make sure I get this down right.
Yeah, I have to con him into it. I'm like, hey, it's for the book. It's for research. Come over here.
You're like, I'm not going to throw you against the wall this time to see if you turn into a prince. Just a simple kiss, but you have to precede it with jewelry and or flowers, honey.
Yes. And last time I made us climb a tree to test something, but I'm not going to do that this time.
Wait, did you actually do that? Please tell me you did, because that would be awesome. Just tell all of us you actually made your husband climb a tree.
No comment. Oh
my gosh, you did. Your husband is a saint, clearly, but he does get to kiss you at the end of it. So lucky guy.
That is terrific. We have a few questions, and going off the kissing, what's your secret to writing a good kiss scene? Like,
it's one of my questions. I'm so glad that came up.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh, that is so such a strange question, because I feel like I have written my share of bad kiss scenes that have not ended up in the book, where you read it and you're like, meh. It could be like cousins kissing. So that's not going in the book. There has to be chemistry. Like, I think is what I'm trying to say in a very bad way. I think you have to have a really deep, good sense of the characters before there's ever a kiss scene on the page. So my number one rule is actually not relating to the kiss at all, but it's to make sure the characters have fully fleshed out arcs already, which is why I do character sheets. So even though this is a romance, outside of the romance, what do your characters want? Like, they have to have external and internal goals that have nothing to do with finding love or, their happily ever afters. They have to be these three-dimensional people. And if you can buy that, then you will naturally get a conflict between the two characters, because what makes it interesting is when the two main characters have conflicting needs in a book. And if they have conflicting needs in a book, when they come together, there's just going to be this natural push-pull kind of dynamic that makes it really interesting to see people fall in love or kiss or whatever it is.
And then Victoria wants to know, how do you come up with the names in your stories for like the people, places, and everything else?
Oh, that's a good one. So there is a website, and I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but you can Google it. If you like a certain kind of name, you can type it in and it'll give you suggestions of other names that are like it, like tonally or thematically or have the same feel. So I use that a lot for my character, like my main character names. I'll be like, I kind of feel like she's a Sophia, but I don't want to use a Sophia. What else do you got? And it'll throw out all these different names. That's how I came up with Katerina. And then I wanted something like royal sounding with a "k" sound. That's all I knew. So I use that a lot. And as for like just random last names and stuff, I have a running list on my phone, on like in my notes app, and I just write down like last names or first names I find really interesting or compelling, or I think sound like characters' names or villains' names and stuff like that. And I'll do the same thing for places, but a lot of times I like to make like very punny places too. So I'll think of like one of the things I get emails about in Of Curses and Kisses is a bookstore called Buckingham Palace. And I love to do stuff like that. It just makes me laugh. So it's a little bit of personality, my personality. I love puns.
Wait, how come I'm not a character name in your books yet? I'm
Right?
still waiting for that moment.
I always feel conflicted about this because I'm like, if the character has any kind of flaw, will the person think that that's what I think about them? So I'm very careful about that.
Is going to be perfect, obviously.
Although in Of Princes and Promises, I will say that like 4 of my street team members won a contest and got to be in the book. So 4 of my side characters in there are from my street team, and I call them out in the acknowledgements at the end, so you can know who they were. That was fun.
It's awesome that you did that. It's really cool for you to like have that chance.
Yeah, it was really fun for me to write it in and be like, what should I do with this character?
And then Jessica is just wondering, what made you decide, or when did you decide to become a writer? And then any advice for a 15-year-old who wants to write?
Oh, Samira, you have to answer this too. For me, I will say that I was one of those who always wanted to be a writer. So I was always scribbling like on my parents' kitchen cabinets, literally, and stuff like that, all over my jeans and backpacks. And so I always knew I wanted to be a writer, but I was also always told that it was not like a feasible career path where I could like support myself or my family. So I did end up going to grad school for something else, which I'm actually grateful for because it keeps the pressure off the writing where I don't feel like the only way I can eat is if I write, So in that way, it was very good. But for a 15-year-old, I would say relax. Firstly, like there's a lot of writing must-dos online. Like you have to write every day, and you have to write this or that or the other. These are the real writers, how they really do it. And I don't really buy into that. I don't write every day, and I never have. So I would say, firstly, the best skill that I learned at that age was how to finish things. It doesn't have to be a novel, but if you can even I started with microfiction, which is like 500 words or less. It can give you a real sense of accomplishment to know that you can finish things, and then you can progress to like short stories and novellas and learn like story arcs and things like that without having to dive into an 80,000 word novel. So I would say, focus on starting and finishing little projects. What about you, Samira?
I mean, I would say, first, it's awesome that you're 15 and love writing and know that you love that. I mean, I was actually not a person who wanted to write my whole life. So I always think it's super cool when I meet a young person who is like, I'm passionate about this. I love it. It's amazing. So yes. I think like, I would also say, you know what, have fun with it. Yeah. There's 2 things that are really important. Like one, I like that you say that finishing is a thing, because a lot of people, you and I probably meet so many people who are like, I want to write a book. And the thing is, a lot of people say that, but most people never get to it because they don't finish it, whether it's because they don't have the perseverance, whether the story doesn't, they don't love it. Sometimes it takes a long time, but you should try to have fun while you're doing it. And like doing smaller things is a great way to build up that confidence. Like you're scaffolding to like, hey, I'm writing this short story, I'm writing this poem, I'm writing this narrative nonfiction essay or whatever. Yeah. So I think that's cool. And I think I would also say like the best writers are the greatest readers. Like, so read a ton and read everything. And I also just want to say like, writing is rewriting. So you got to finish it first and then go back and rewrite it and share it with your friends and people who are going to cheer you on. I think like when you get to be, when you're getting to the point where you want to really publish or whatever, then you are going to have like people who read it who can be more critical. But especially in the beginning, you got to just get some cheerleaders, and I hope you find some people who can do that for you. But we're cheering you on, so keep that in mind.
That's wonderful. I love that you already know you want to be a writer. So please keep going.
And then there's a question I'm going to remix a little from a fan. What is your favorite book of each other's, and why do you love it so much?
I already said who my favorite character is. I mean, I fell in love with Dimple probably. I mean, I know they say don't judge a book by its cover, but the moment I saw the cover of Dimple, I was like, who is this girl that's throwing this iced coffee on this dude? Because I remember seeing I think you showed me, or maybe you put it online, like the outtakes from the photo shoot.
Yes.
And I remember just thinking like, I've never seen anything like it. And I just love the humor. And so, I mean, to me, I don't know. I know you said like your oldest books are kind of simpler or maybe not as layered as some of your other ones. But like I said before, Dimple sort of has my heart because she is a character who's not perfect.
Yes.
And she doesn't realize that necessarily in the beginning. And she makes mistakes, which I also love because I feel like a lot of times people have this expectation that the character can't make mistakes, but you put them out there for her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she makes assumptions and she falls on her face sometimes and
right.
she picks herself up. And there's something about that I love. Like she's just like a girl like all the other girls, but who has like some gumption and, she's willing to admit when something's wrong. And she has like a big heart and like an open mind. So I don't know. Dimple to me is like, she's just so fantastic. So that's my favorite for sure.
Thank you. Mine is actually also one of your older ones, Love, Hate, and Other Filters. I loved Maya so much. She was like, it was just, there was so much in that book. Like it seemed like a lighthearted romance, which I guess it was on some level, right? But then you dive into it and there's so much more going on. Like you were obviously very good at layering the deep stuff with the light stuff, even back then. It was just incredible. And I remember you getting some pushback for pushing the boundary and pushing the envelope with that book where, like, just like you said about Dimple, I did too, for writing an unlikable heroine. And I think those are the best kinds of books because when women write books about strong female characters, people have strong opinions. And that's how you know you've done it right.
Yeah, agree. I mean, I think Dimple and Maya could be friends for sure.
Yes. Oh my gosh, absolutely. Like they would be BFFs. And it would be so much trouble for everybody else.
Totally. It would be, well, one day we'll have to like just do a event where we just like riff as like those characters like talking to each other. That would be
fun. That would be amazing.
And then Letitia in the chat says internment and there's something about Sweetie are her favorites for you.
Oh, Sweetie's a good one. I love Twinkle too.
Yes, Twinkle, my second child who was so hard to put into the world.
Sometimes the second one's difficult. Yeah.
And then we have one final question from the audience, and then we'll wrap it up. Have your characters ever surprised you by not going along with what you planned, especially since you're a meticulous plotter? And Samira, please feel free to answer this because I feel like this is important for young readers to know that sometimes characters, well, you can explain.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I was talking about this a little bit earlier, but Katerina definitely, I felt like I knew her very well. And I knew what her arc was going to be. But as I started to write, she became a much deeper. Her stuff was so much deeper and so much more nuanced than I had realized. And I thought that Rahul was going to be like the deep, character in the book, and Katerina's was going to be somewhat, not superficial, but somewhat more superficial. And actually she ended up I ended up warming up to her so much. I did not think I had that much in common with her when I went to write it, because obviously she's an Italian, like multi-million heiress coming to school in like a private jet. Never happened to me, still bitter about it. But I was like, okay, but I'll try to do my best here. And then I ended up, she's probably one of my favorite heroines that I've ever written. So like, I think that's when, like we were talking about earlier, that's when the magic happens for me, is when characters, they really do feel like their own beings, like out in the world, like they really exist in this other dimension, and they are not going to just be your puppets to play with. So that was for me. What about you?
I think I like how when it's like that thing that you said about letting there be the space for magic when you're writing, because it doesn't necessarily feel to me like it just happens that they're there. It's just that as I'm putting these words onto the page, sometimes I think, you know what, should actually go in a slightly different direction. It would be more interesting, but in order for that to happen, this would have to happen to another character. So like in Internment, for example, there's actually 2 character deaths. And one character death I had planned from the beginning, but the second character death I hadn't. But as I was writing that character, it was just more of he was like a side character. But as I was writing it, I was like, you know what? I need this character to have like more, like a little bit more rage, but more like heroic rage in a way. And then I was like, you know what? I think this character is going to have to die. But I actually think it worked for that book and that character. And there was a second side character in the book who also was just so minor. She was just like in a couple scenes, this like older Indian, like desi auntie. But I loved, I just had her this one scene and I loved her so much. I was like, you know what? She deserves a little more page time because she has a little bit of wisdom to share. And I like doing some intergenerational stuff. So I think one of the things, the most important thing when you're writing those, and like Sandhya, we both said that we plot now pretty seriously, is being open to other possibilities.
Yes, exactly. It just feels really, to me, it feels really like magical. Like the universe is like, hey, here's a new idea for this. Sprinkle some fairy dust on your page. And it's just, I love those moments. Those are probably some of my favorite writing moments.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, for joining us for Of Princess and Promises. This is the release, like it came out today.
It came out today, yes. Thank you for having me and having Samira. And Samira, thank you so much for talking to me. It was so fun.
I wish we had cake or something to celebrate together. But next time I'm in debt. I know, next time when we can have like in-person events again and I can be at Tattered Cover again, we should have cake.
Absolutely.
We would definitely be happy to make cake and in-person happen sometime soon once we're all comfortable with doing that.
Yes.
And I want to thank everyone who attended today. There were some technical difficulties at the beginning, but thank you all for sticking with me as I stumbled through that. I also miss in-person events, not just because of cake, but because I don't have to deal with Zoom and YouTube and everything. And you can get Of Princess and Promises now at Tattered Cover in person. We're open, tatteredcover.com. I believe we'll have some signed copies when you venture up our way. I know you're a little farther south. But,
signed and personalized. So just order from Tattered Cover. There are links in my Instagram bio for you guys to go do that.
Perfect. And before I start doing my spiel about how I love readers supporting independent books, I know everyone's here is a fan of you. Can you just remind them where they can find you on Twitter, Instagram, your website, and everything, both of you?
Yeah, so I'm Sandhya Menon. You can find me on sandhyamenon.com or Instagram, Sandhya Menon Books, or Twitter, SMenonBooks.
I'm just at samiraahmed.com, and my Twitter and IG are Sam_IAYE_am AHM.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for an amazing night. Congratulations on another book release. I can't believe it's 7 and 5-ish years. Wow.
Thank you so much, Adam.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, I'm Adam from Tattered Cover. You can, like I said, get signed copies at tatteredcover.com or in person. Thank you all. We wouldn't be here without you. It's been 50 years we've been in Denver. So thank you all for your support and supporting indie bookstores. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening. Okay, it has ended. Thank you so much. Thank you.